Alright, here we go with another video. I don't even remember how many this is. I think this is, I'm guessing this is number 24 on silhouette videos. Never thought I would get this far. This time I'm kind of serious. I'm all hopped up on half-price Halloween coffee and cut caffeine. I've even got notes. I've got my glasses in case I need to read them. The video's about the thing with silhouette, the only thing with silhouette really. It really gets my blood pressure up and just kind of pisses me off. And you'll hear the discussions at the range. You'll read the discussions on the internet forums. And they say, oh, well, nobody will shoot silhouette because it's too expensive. It's not too expensive. That's absolute BS. It all depends on how you go about it. Now, yes, going out, if you're going to just get started and buy an expensive, German-made rifle, and you know the brand I'm talking about, and shoot the very expensive high-end target ammo, yeah, that's going to get real expensive. But that's not the way you can start. It's not the way you should start. It's never the way I would recommend you start. Start cheap. Start inexpensive. It's not an expensive hobby to get into. It's not an expensive sport to be competitive in. Now, you know me, I have kind of a philosophy. If you don't know me, I have kind of a reputation for shooting a cheap rifle. I shoot an inexpensive, this is in small bore silhouette, which is the small, the 1/5 target. Because of course, I got them sitting in the garage in a bucket, for shooting the little guys. I shoot pretty much off the shelf Ruger American rimfire. It's a nice rifle. I do fairly well with it. A less expensive scope, a Simmons scope. It's around $100 when I can find them on sale. Usually once a year, I've been hunting around for prices and pieces and parts, and you can put that down without knocking over the camera. That would be funny, huh? Come on, cooperate. All right, well, we'll just do that because I don't have time to screw around here. We got stuff to discuss. Search around, hunt around for the scope that I like when it's on sale. You'll end up seeing I've got 3 of them now because over the past 10 years I've been able to afford 3 of them when they're on sale. So that's just the way it is. See, this is why I have notes, so I don't get totally off track. Alright, first of all, getting into silhouette, not that expensive. Especially when you compare it to other sports, period. When you compare it to other shooting sports, it's even not that expensive. Because if you're just getting started, you can get started with basically any old .22 long rifle, rimfire rifle that you have already in your gun closet. Pull it out, get your zeros, go to the range. You can shoot a match. Now, you may want to start off on the larger targets, not the little ones. You may want to start off on the half-size targets, and we'll get into that a little later, of where I'd really like to see some match directors help out in that respect. Basic rifle, .22 long rifle. Almost everybody has one. Almost everybody starts with a .22 at some point. The good quality ammunition for your .22 rifle is not that expensive. You're talking 5 to 7 cents a round. Now, this is 2018. Things can change. 4 years ago, it was much more expensive and a lot more difficult to get a hold of it. Right now, easy. You go to any old big box store, any big sporting goods store, certainly any decent gun shop, they're going to have a great selection of, we'll call it mid-level, not the totally cheap bucket of ammo. You don't want that because that's great for plinking. It's not going to cover you at 100 yards hitting a small target. But the decent .22 long rifle ammunition, not that expensive. When you compare it to other sports like 3-gun, that gets really expensive if you're not careful. Even steel challenge, that's not that expensive, but if you start getting up into the different classes, it can get a little pricey. Certainly IDPA can get expensive. They all can get expensive if you let it. But you don't have to. I mean, I've been competing in small bore silhouette for 6-7 years now. I started with a 10-22. I went to a Ruger American rimfire. Not super expensive. Would I love to buy the fancy gun and drop 10 grand on a nice rig and go that route? Sure, but I can't. Why can't I? Because I live on a farm. I've got horses to feed. I've got sheep to feed. I've got goats that eat whatever they want anyway. Dogs, cats, chickens. It's ridiculous. So, I have to live within a budget like everybody else in the whole world. Maybe someday when I retire, I can go drop 10 grand on I'm never going to retire, so that's just a myth right there. But you can do it. You can do just fine. I'm up to AAA class. We'll get into classes in a couple of minutes. I'm like right on the edge of master class a couple of times. I'm getting there. With what I've had people who may not like what I'm doing describe as a department store rifle. And actually, when I first started doing this, I thought I was going to move up and get the fancy equipment and, do that kind of thing and get the hardcore purpose-built silhouette rifle. But now I've been doing what I do, and I kind of like the idea of getting a decent score with the department store rifle. That's my personal thing, my philosophy of cheapness. You can call me cheap, you can call me a cheap bastard, you can call me frugal, whatever you want. I'm not going to go out and spend $1 bazillion on rifles right now. Now, I'm mostly talking about small bore rifle, which is a scoped rimfire. Now, if you have an iron sights rifle in the closet, you certainly can at my match in Tennessee, but you should be able to find your local match. If you have iron sights, go to a cowboy, a lever action match where they're going to have the half-size targets, the larger targets. They should, in theory, allow you to shoot at those targets with your small bore rifle with iron sights, any small bore rifle. I mean, somebody shows up to my match with a lever action with iron sights, I'm going to let them shoot on the small bore cowboy, half scale, twice as big as those targets. Now, it's not going to count in the NRA scores, obviously. We're going to make a class for that. We're going to call it club rifle iron sights. But you're never going to deny a new person the ability to try to shoot the targets and get a feel for how it works. In theory, anybody shows up at my match, even if they don't have a rifle, they're going to get a chance to shoot because I have a stack pack of ammo that people have donated to me. Not to me, have donated to the club for that type of thing. I purposely built this sucker right here. This is my old 22, which I shot for 3 years. I shot silhouette with basically a 10-22. That's it. I did what I do to the trigger to make it a little better. It's still not as good as the trigger I have in my regular rimfire right now, which out of the factory, it's better than this. Nothing fancy. Do it a little bit of polishing. That's all I did. But I shot this rifle in its factory stock for 3 years. Did pretty good. Now what I've done with this, obviously not everybody in the world is going to love this, the stock that's on this, because it's not a traditional stock. The reason I went with this stock, which is a Magpul 22 Hunter X, whatever they call it, is because it has adjustable butt pads. It has interchangeable cheek riser. The whole point here is, so my son, who's 11, I can change these out. We can both use it. If somebody else comes to the range, another child comes to the range with their parents during a match, I can switch these out and get this to a halfway decent feel for them. They can shoot the scope rifle on the larger targets to get a feel for how it works. You know, that doesn't bother me. That's club rifle. That's one of the things I kind of wish all match directors could go to some sort of thing. Not everybody shoots both-size targets at their matches. We do. For the matches that they do shoot both sides, both targets consecutively, side by side, I'd like to see everybody come up with a club rifle category. You don't have to do anything. It doesn't go into the score books. It doesn't go into the official NRA scores. But they can go out there, they can shoot a few rounds, practice on shooting the big targets, get their nerve up to shoot the little targets. I mean, that's really the way you should develop a shooter. Plain and simple. Because offhand shooting is hard. It's an asymmetric exercise where you're putting your body into a position that it normally does not want to be in. So, you know, shooting on those big targets is great confidence builder. They start digging those targets and they start thinking, well, maybe I can move down to the small ones after a couple of rounds, you know? And really, most people, if they're going to go to a match, they're going to shoot 1 or 2 matches in club rifle, meaning scope rifle on the big targets. It's just a category I made up. Well, I didn't make it up. They made it up. I've seen people make it up and I copied them. But you do 1, 2 rounds of that, you're going to... There's going to be a fly. There's a fly trying to get out of here. It's a farm. 1 or 2 rounds on shooting the big targets, you're going to want to at least try to move down to the small ones. And if you're a match director or if you're one of the people who are taking the statistics or just a target setter or just the person who flips hamburgers, get in behind that person, get on the spotting scope and try to help them through to get to that, onto those smaller targets. Huge confidence builder. You hit that first chicken and you're hooked for life. Anyway, yeah, that's the ADD kicking in right there. I'll stop for a cup of coffee and I'll probably put a little video of a chicken or something in here just for fun. So, you've got your inexpensive rifle. This is an example of an inexpensive air rifle. This is just a Daisy Avante, which is you know, the Daisy action with the nice barrel. 4H rifle, you know. It shoots a 177 pellet. Now I've been equipped this again with that same scope that I like. I know I showed a different air rifle in a previous video. That was a department store rifle I paid $88 for and practiced with that all the time with the nice scope. Actually, no, that had a different scope because that's a Springer. It would wreck this scope. It has a different scope. This one is a single pump, very slow moving pellet. It's not going to hurt this this scope at all. But then again, I'm repeating. I have the same scope on this. You'll see in a second I have the same scope on what I'm developing as my centerfire rifle. So all my regular silhouette scopes are going to be the same. Now obviously I can't go out and spend the money on a $2,000 scope times 3, you know. So there's got to be some give and take. You have a budget. Now realize I didn't just go all run out and get these. You know, I started with just a 1022 with a 3x9 $40 scope. Used that for probably 2 years, then upgraded the scope. Then bought a different rifle, swapped the scope over to that. You know, then I bought another rifle, then I bought another rifle. It's over, you know, just been over 10, 11 years. Nothing, no giant expenditures here, you know. Now here's the other thing, okay? So you have your less expensive rifle and you think to yourself, oh, I'll never be competitive with the big guys who have the big money to buy all the equipment. Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. because of the classification system. These are the little score books that we get. I might accidentally call them rule books because sometimes I do that. These are classification books that you buy from the NRA. I'll have them at the local matches. The NRA sends the local match directors a bunch of books, and he sells them. That money goes to the NRA. It pays for basically all the record keeping that the NRA does. In the books, it's going to have all your different categories, and then it's going to have all the different classification breaks for scores. So if you're a B-level shooter, B-level is the very basic, then A, double A, triple A, and master. Okay? So if you're a B or an A shooter, and you've got your less expensive equipment, okay, you're competing against all the other A shooters. You're competing against all the other B shooters. If you're double A, you're competing against all the other double A shooters. You're shooting within your class. You don't have to compete against the biggest and the best. It's like going to a drag race and pulling onto the drag strip with your daily driver and trying to race John Force. You're not going to do that. You're going to race within your category. You are shooting within your category. At all the local level matches, all your weekend matches, you've got nobody to beat but yourself. I mean, that's the thing. You're competing for the best scores that you can put in this book and hopefully upgrade to the next level. The score breaks are going to all vary a little bit by the type of rifle, the type of class. You know, obviously the scores for a lever action are not going to be the same as the score breakdown for a small bore, but it's all in the book. You get the book, you'll read it, you'll see it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And I basically covered everything I need to cover on this one. Don't worry about your equipment. Get out there and shoot. You know, take the time to practice. Know with whatever rifle you pull out of the closet. I've seen people literally pull a squirrel gun out of the closet, go to a match, and do just fine. We've got a guy at my match who decided one day he was going to bring his lever action rimfire with, I think, like a 4-power scope and shoot the small targets, which he normally shoots with a different brand of rifle. You know, a more expensive but not super expensive rifle. And man, he did just fine. I think he might have done one of his better scores that day. Just, you know, it's what he pulled out and what he decided to use, and he had terrific luck with it. You know, and he practices all the time too, so he knows the drills and knows what he's going to do. But he did great. You know, you go get a rifle, get a little practice, get out there, find yourself a local match. And here we go, we're going to talk about match directors again, like I talked before with have a class of half-scale targets. Well, here's another thing, match directors and competitors. If you go to a match and you're new, brand new, or even kind of new, and you show up to that match and for some reason their snobbery is at high levels and they don't want you to shoot that kind of rifle, oh, well, we only shoot small bore targets with lever actions, and we're not going to let you use a 1022, and, you know, you've got a department store gun. Screw that place. Find yourself another match, okay? Let those kind of matches die, because those guys are going to not have any new competitors. They're all going to get old. That match is going to be gone, okay? There's no rules that say you have to have a lever action as far as I know of, and I've read the rules a bunch. You know, you will run into some of that classism, some of that sort of bad attitude once in a while. It's much less common than it used to be. 90s, early 1990s, mid 1990s, man, elitism was tough in all of the shooting sports. It's not like that anymore. I think mostly because so many new people are buying guns, have gotten guns, concealed carry permits. There's obviously a big deal going on as far as that goes. So the elitism isn't anywhere near what it used to be. You'll run into it rarely now. The thing is now, and then the other thing is, in the late 80s, 1990s, up until almost the late 1990s, you almost did have to go to be even reasonably competitive and buy expensive equipment. You don't have to do that now because things have changed. Manufacturing processes have changed. Quality control, things being designed and built by computers, by machines, with robotics. Barrels are much more consistent as they come off the line. Actions are more consistent as they come off the line. That's not saying all manufacturers can make a gun that's capable of shooting silhouette. They can't. Okay, you got to have a gun that's really capable of shooting MOA or less, because you're the weak spot in the system where you're standing trying to shoot. You're the wobbly chuck that isn't getting things done right, so you need a rifle that can shoot fairly consistently. But you've got manufacturers like, I'm going to shoot off names in no particular order. You've got manufacturers like CZ, Savage, Ruger. There's probably 12 other ones out there who can also perfectly capable of grabbing a gun off the rack at the sporting goods store and going to shoot a match, or even keeping that rifle and shooting matches for 10 years with it and doing just fine. It's just the way it is. If you come up to an elitist group, find yourself another group, or start your own group, or take over that group, and that type of thing. If there are people in your club that are doing that, weasel your way into that club organization and take that group over and just let the old guys do their thing, maybe on a different day. You got to bring the new people in, let the new people in, let everybody shoot. It's not an expensive sport. It's actually really cheap compared to other shooting sports. And that's my bitch for today.